Hey everyone, a lot of people ask me what do I think about the first to 10 format. Obviously, we can't do this in tournament because that'd just be way too long, but we've seen a lot of exhibitions, especially in the FGC, with I believe Diego and Tokido playing in Street Fighter, and also we saw Goichi and Sonic Fox play a first to 10 final round, I believe, in Dragon Ball Fighter Z. And so both those exhibitions were very hype. They're very amazing. I actually tuned in for both, and I thought they were very captivating. It was very tense, very exciting, and so a lot of people were wondering, like, well, what do we think of this first to 10 format for Smash? And so it's like pretty interesting. I forget who exactly said it, but the Japanese, some Japanese players, at least for Street Fighter, said that the first to 10 is like the purest format. Because they believe that the tournament format where players play against each other in like a best of 3 or best of 5 doesn't really test the true skill between two players, whereas in a first to 10 it's the most pure because you see adaptations and adjustments come out from round to round, and so you really see not a person that really just has like a short burst form, a short playstyle that's really good for short sets, but then you really see the full gamut of a player's playstyle come out, and you see who really can come out on top when all the cards are laid out in a first to 10. So something that may work for the first couple of games, your opponent could figure out completely and dismantle your game plan, and for the next like 10 or 11 games they win like 90% of the next games, and you can't figure it out. So it's a really interesting format. It gets me really excited. I think the other benefit we have from a first to 10 especially comes in those sets where we kind of wish it was a little bit longer, and I think that's one of the issues with fighting games in Smash, is that the format length for the top tier matches are really short. And what I mean by this is that when you have League of Legends or Counter-Strike or an Overwatch, a standard game between two top teams is a minimum like 40 to 50 minutes, and it goes longer for League if you have a best of 3 or best of 5 where you're at least playing 2 to 3 games, which is, anywhere from like an hour to like 3 to 4 hours, which makes for like a, nice full broadcast. Keeping context, when we translate this to sports, when we have two teams play against each other, it's usually a 2 to 3 hour broadcast. But when you have like a hype set between Mango and Armada, and they're not having a bracket reset, most of the time that set's like 10 to 15 minutes long, or you get the really embarrassingly low kind of duration of like 6 minutes, like at one of the Genesis Grand Finals. And if you have top players and you really want to showcase your game, it kind of sucks that your best players only get to play each other for a small handful of minutes, and then it's all over. The first to 10 kind of solves that a bit. It doesn't give you a full 2 to 3 hour broadcast, but it gives you a longer broadcast where you get to see top players showcase their skills for at least like 20 to 40 minutes. Most likely you could probably extend it to a solid hour of like pre-show to doing the first to 10 to an end show recap / interviews, and I think that's a really solid way to make it so that Smash has top tier content that where both players have something at stake and it's something meaningful and also substantial in length. We also see a different level of skill, and what I mean by this is, so if we were to give the classic example, let's say Mutaking wins game 1 and game 2 against the Fox or Falco. Essentially from that point on, because of counterpicks, the set is over, and the Fox and Falco have to play like a very desperate high risk style, and then they have to play FD twice if they want to win the set. So it's like not really like the best showcase of skill. Granted, Mutaking on FD is a giant showcase of skill, the fact that he's so good at it. But overall, it kind of feels like, oh man, like, or if I were to give it another example, sometimes games, if we look at like 1 or 2 games, they get stolen by the tiniest of margins, and you're just like, oh man, like if 1 to 2 games swung the other way, this could have been a totally different story. But and so sometimes, I think, usually the best player wins like 80 to 90% of the time in a best of 5, but we really don't get to see all our questions answered between the two players. Like imagine instead of seeing like a best of 5 between Mango and Leffen, we saw like an ongoing battle, like similar to what we see with like Mango or Leffen's stream when they play net player, or they're at Summit Point 5, where they get to play an extended set against each other. But imagine there's like on top of that there's something at stake, so it's not just kind of like a casual environment, but they really want to like gun at each other. Then I think a first to 10 is like magnificent here, and so I think there's just a load of potential with first to 10. And so a lot of the other questions that kind of come up with the first to 10 is like, how do we decide on a format? I think what somebody proposed was that you can't go to, like, let's say you counterpick FD as a chain grabber. you can't. I guess what some people suggested is that if you win on a stage like FD, on your next counter pick, you can't go to FD until you win on another stage, and then if you win on another stage on your counter pick, then you can go back to FD. Another rule I saw proposed is that you can't once you win a stage 3 times within a set, you can't ever go back to that stage, which I think is also very interesting. I think for a first to 10, winning, like, I think it would be really sad if, like, in a first to 10, like, 5 of your games you won on FD because you could chain grab. So I think having an upper limit could be an interesting proposal, but overall, I'm not quite sure what the best format is. I remember when I played TN, we kind of had a gentleman's agreement, and overall there aren't too many super wonky stages for Sheik Dittos that really bother me, so we kind of just let each other just go back to any stage we wanted. I think we ended up on Battlefield most of the time, but I imagine for certain character matchups, like stage, the number of times you can play on a stage is a pretty makes a pretty big impact, especially when you have like a FD or a Dreamland that's super powerful, or for certain players like Yoshi's being really strong or Stadium being really strong. So I don't really know what the stage rules are. Maybe somebody can think of something cool. Now, as far as who can participate in the first to 10, like off the bat, I think Leffen and Mango would be a really amazing one. And I just think that anyone that has something to prove, or 2 upcoming players that really want to prove themselves against like another player or have a legitimate rivalry, would also make good candidates for a first to 10 exhibition. So I think the one big thing here is that we can't really force a first to 10 to 2 players that aren't necessarily rivals or who like really have beef or have something to prove. So like it doesn't make sense to have like 2 friends who like don't really care about playing, or trying to force a narrative is basically what I'm getting at. Like, you don't want to have 2 players that don't really want to be there or who have fake beef. That's like kind of like the worst scenario you can have. But you know, embedded within the Smash community, I think especially when you creep down to like the top 20 level players, the top 50, and even the top 100, I think there's a lot of players that made the top 100 list that a lot of other players from other regions thought was very fraudulent. So imagine like a player who finished like 95th or 96th on the SSBM rank, and like another player from another region that doesn't really get showcased as well say like, hey, like, you know what, if I entered more tournaments and got more exposure, if I lived on the West Coast, like I would totally be ranked higher than this scrub. This scrub doesn't deserve to be ranked. And I think that'd be like a really amazing first to 10 opportunity. So there's a lot of, you know, great stuff that we can pull off of this. I think like this could get a lot more regions involved. A lot of people will, you know, support their boy or, you know, girl down the road. Hopefully we get more women down the road. That'd be really cool. But it's kind of similar to like boxers coming from like a certain country or a certain hometown, and you have like everyone rally and they're all cheering for their boy or girl. And that'd be really cool. As far as, you know, when could this be executed, I think there's a niche and there's a market where we literally just have like a broadcast where it's 4 fight cards. You have like 3 smaller fight cards leading into like the main event fight cards, similar to like a UFC or like a boxing type of thing, and you like just have that be the entire night. I mean, that could easily be a 4-hour broadcast if you had 4 to 5 fight cards, and I think that'd be an amazing show. And I think what's even easier about this is you can fly them to Twitch or a small studio and just have them play it out on stream, and I think that's like probably one of the easiest broadcast solutions we can do. Some people suggested, why don't they do it at a tournament where everybody's already there? I imagine with a large audience that could be pretty cool, but I imagine a lot of players wouldn't want to do that because the main event of a tournament is the tournament itself, as in singles brackets, so it's kind of weird. It's even weirder, let's say if you had like Mango and Leffen play at first to 10, and then one of them ends up winning, and then they're just like, oh, like it doesn't really matter because like what's more important is the singles event that's worth way more tomorrow. So it kind of kills some of the legitimacy. So it'd be really cool. I think my proposal would be like we have 2 to 3 events within the entire year where Melee content and Melee tournaments are at a low point, and we fill it up with 3 to 4 fight cards. And I imagine that we could probably think of at least like 50 combinations of players if we look at top 100 players and also people on the bubble. Like, for example, I also think that Crunch and Michael 41 billion would also be a really good one. And I think there's kind of like some feistiness going on there. So those are just kind of my thoughts. I think it's a really great format. I think there's a lot of potential with it if we were to do it well. So hopefully, you know, some TO gets on board, or hopefully the Crimson Blur begins to execute on this, because it's one of the easiest ways he can get the viewership hours he needs for his metrics for his higher ups and it's relatively low cost. So those are my thoughts on the first to 10.